Hello.
Hey, good
Good morning.
morning.
How are we doing today?
Good, you?
Good, I think.
Okay. What's been going on?
Let's see. Been learning Codex.
Okay.
That
And
tool is you have to rethink everything. But that's probably the most impressive coding tool I have seen to date as far as out of the box, get something done. It's far different. You have to relearn how to code. It's very different. You don't have an IDE in front of you. I mean, and if people have been coding as long as I have, I've had an IDE in front of me since the 80s. It's some type of IDE was there. Um, and this will, if your GitHub skills lack, it will really cripple you because it pivots around GitHub through the whole process. It gets the version of your software that you want to, your code that you want to use. It gets that from GitHub. Follows all of the instructions that you give it for how to get it set up, and then it takes whatever you told it to do and handles the coding change, and it keeps it right there in, we'll call it OpenAI land for the moment. And then if you like what you see, you can't run it from there. But it does have test suites and stuff like that, but that's the extent of running it. If you like it, then you push it into GitHub. And from there, you can pull it, you can fetch it, you can get it down and then play with it locally and see what you like testing wise or don't like. Uh, this would be a problem if it wasn't really accurate. The fact is that out of the box, it comes and that scares me. It's like every tutorial I read is like this is their phase one of their launch, and it's that good. I was, there are limitations. You can't give it screenshots yet. You can't like that. But when you work with it and you start to understand its strengths, its weaknesses, this could save time like you've never seen.
so you said you had to completely rethink the way that you code to use it.
Yes, yes, because it's not like it's like you get an IDE, it's you with the AI partnering. You can hand off little things while you tackle this, and you can divide and conquer very quickly, very easily. Where this is treat it like you hired somebody from Upwork is the best way to look at it. You have a set of instructions. Here's what you're going to do. Here's the code base you're going to be working with, and you're going to hand me results.
Do you give that context or does it extract it automatically from the GitHub or how does that work?
It's a combination of both. It extracts the entire code base from GitHub first, and then inside what you're telling it to do, instead of letting it search and make mistakes, you actually direct it. And you probably say, "Hey, I want you to work on what was I? Oh, uh, user updater." When it was working on that code. I made sure I pointed to the exact code in the code what you're going to be working with, so that way I prevent any mistakes, misinterpretations, just like you're dealing with an individual. You know, rather than just me saying, "Hey, we're working on with the update initializer," and it reads updater and initializer. Well, that could be two different things, and it's relying on a guess at that point. You take the guesswork out of it. This is what you're doing. This is what success looks
So it
like.
really is just like you would need to onboard like a coder, a junior programmer or whatever. You do that same sort of onboarding and then start giving it tasks like you would if you
Yep.
were giving them to a person.
Yep. But don't look at it as like a junior programmer anymore. This thing
Really?
is sharp. This thing is sharp. It's I because for winging it, I was like, let's see what especially the first few times, it was like, let's see, I'm going to hit you a little hard and see what happens. And it was like, it wasn't perfect all the time, but where it got you was like, holy crap.
As a V1.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. As a V1 tool, I can already see if you were to take OpenAI's, I think their conception right now is they're going to have this sitting there as, I'll call it a backend tool, where you're dealing directly with the GitHub. You're almost trying to deal straight off with issues, pull requests. You have a concept in mind what you're doing. You're not coding. You have a concept. You want this done. And then they bought Windsurf, and that is going to be the other piece. This is the local piece. This is the one that's going to sit in front of developers, and they are going to be able to tackle software development from both perspectives. And that is going to be hard to touch. And that, straight off, the Codex model they have there is better than anything I've ever seen. It's like I said, it's, you can tell, it's like this thing knew how to code as a human being. The only weakness I've found so far, and this could be user right now, is how to get it to join in on a design discussion. We're not, you can say ask, yes, but how do you get, it's like that you have a software engineer right there of that caliber. I want to hear those ideas too.
Right.
It's let's
Can't you
brainstorm from it.
chat? Isn't it a model and like a UI? Like can you chat with it like outside of like the handing off task project? It sounds
Yeah.
like, can you just bring it up? Do you have it
Oh,
handy?
hold on. Yes, you can ask it things straight off the bat. Let me figure out which windows now. I'm ready for other things. There we go. And so let's go get your coding task. There we go. And now let's share. There we go. Okay, seeing it?
Yes.
Okay. This is the results when you tell it to do something.
Can you scroll back? Does it have a scroll where you can look at
Hit
what you were telling it?
right here.
We now need a dummy test user updater script to run for any user with version 0. This will drop a console that the updater is working as expected and also update the user to, okay, so we can verify the system is working.
Yep, just a very simple
And
test
you
for.
and also my understanding is you can open up another tab because it's running in their virtual environment and you can have
Yep.
multiple of these because it took 6 minutes. So you could just go on to your next to do to give it and open a new tab and away it goes.
Like I said, this is where the users have to change, or the coders, the people. From a normal
Right.
coder mentality, you can just theoretically, you have one brain, you have two set of hands, one IDE. I mean, you can switch, but your best mileage is when you move start to finish
Yeah,
in one line.
everybody's going to become a manager of these AI agents and this is just the first example of this and this is why communication, being able to think for yourself
Yep.
and not be the type of person that needs like a hoop set up in front of you to jump through, but actually be the type of person that can decide what hoop do we need and where should we place it, tell that to the AI, and then the AI goes and does it.
Yeah, can you direct traffic is what this is going to come down to, because it's like, and try not to cross yourself up. You have to have a large vision because like our code base, I mean, it's not
Right. That's what
huge.
I mean. Like you
Yeah.
can't, it's not just coming at you though, right? Like you need to set up the intersections and decide kind of
Yep.
where do you want, what's the destination for this traffic, right?
Yes. Yep.
And then you don't have to set up every little intersection, but you need to have a clear definition of what the intersection is. It seems like right now you need to be able to break that up into individual tasks that you can give
Yep.
to the AI and you need to manage that. But this is V1 and you could definitely see a world where you're just coming up with a destination and the AI is going out and like coming up with all the tasks, assigning them out, blah blah blah, and maybe just pinging you when it's running into issues and or saying, "Hey, just want to make sure before I commit this to the GitHub,
It
this
won't,
is
no,
what you
it
want."
will not commit for you. You have to press that button at all times.
Right.
It doesn't handle that for you and all like that, which I'm glad, because it's like, and that's what I say, this is where the learning curve enters. It's like you said, right now I'm giving it individual tasks. That way I know that, okay, you do this, I'm making sure you did it right. You do this, I'm making sure you did it right, and then so on, and building on those blocks.
Yeah, and I
But
mean, I just think this is the future of everything
yeah,
that
oh,
you
this,
all knowledge work, everything you sit in front of the computer for, coding is the first place that we're seeing the future basically.
yep, yep. What was I getting onto? Yeah, and like we were talking, this is just version one. This is strong. Where that's what I was talking about. Where this wasn't even viewable is when you look at windsurf, root coding, cursor. It doesn't matter which one. the models are not as sharp as this. So
Oh, so
you
you're
have
saying even so it's not just the workflow and like you can just hand it tasks and it goes out and does it, but it's also the actual coding model is stronger than Claude.
that thing. Oh, it makes Claude look silly. I deal with
Wow.
Claude 3.7 a lot, and things that I expect, like we were talking about the user updater that I'm working on. I know with Claude what the basic time it's going to take with utilizing that to accelerate my skills to get it done. And this has chewed through everything except for one thing so far on the first attempt, right off the bat. We're right. Let's do this. And that is, for what AI has done in the past, that alone is mind blowing. So
It is
that
my
I'm
it is mind blowing. I mean, this is it. This is what everybody's been talking about. You know what I mean? Like this is the first example. Well, I guess deep research was probably the first example in terms of this actually does the job of a researcher, a junior researcher.
yep,
And I guess, the cursors of the world, was a good example of working with a junior programmer together, kind of,
yep.
where they can sort of autocomplete the stuff that the code that you need with your direction. And then this is actually like, okay, now we can actually just come up with a task, hand it to the AI. And it seems like this will get better in terms of the accuracy and the amount of involvement it's going to need from you to actually complete the task. But you could, like, I think the next phase of this is like, okay, just give us your project. We're going
I'm
to
not
come
saying even
back to
that couldn't
you.
be done yet.
What's
Like I
that?
said, I haven't tested this as far as I'm going to give it a large series of tasks in one prompt. Do this. And the only reason why I didn't jump there is because I still have deadlines to meet and what I want to do while doing this, testing
Yeah.
out this. So it's like, I don't want to get too crazy and waste too much time. So this may be able to jump through hoops for me. The one thing it needs to start, they need to allow to do is for me to give it screenshots. Because if I could give it screenshots of this is what either A, this is what something looks like now and we want to change it to XYZ, or here's the design I have in mind.
Right.
So
We want
if
to
I,
shift this window from this side to this side. And here's what I'm talking about with some
yeah,
drawings around it and stuff. Go
yeah, because
do it.
I use sniper tool all the time because it just I draw on it and I hand it to it and it's like you don't have to try to explain an image in text now. They get 1,000 words. It runs with it. That little paradigm works great. So when it can do that, then all of a sudden this is going to take off even faster.
Okay. So, I think this is on the one hand great for us because, we're betting with BrainDrive that, a big competitive advantage for us is we're going to run very, very lean and
Yep,
mean. So we don't need to raise a bunch of venture capital and like be, forced to throw up walls, to
yep.
lock people in and, extract a lot more value than we're actually providing, like these big tech companies are doing. So this is great from that standpoint. On the other side, this is definitely, if we're relying on this tool, it's definitely a lock in for us, as a community and as a project. And I think also we're agreeing that like this is the future of everything,
Well,
so
this is only the future of half the coding world to me. Because and OpenAI even knows that based on what because they didn't spend $3 billion on a hunch. They know that for the entire coding world is divided into two sectors. You have the remote cloud. I'm going to give you a job. They just destroyed Upwork and Fiverr with Codex right there at the end of the day because I can hand something I would hand build me a plugin. Here's my screen. When they can do screenshots, here's my screen design. Here's my plugin. Here's the project you're going to do with. I don't even really need to give this instructions on how to build a plugin now.
wow.
Those kind of things. It's like, but like I said, where its weak points is that local. I'm going to design something out of the box that, or that as in thinking wise. This isn't done before. This is not how something's been done, and like that. And I want to do X, Y, Z. This is where the interface to IDE and that pairing where I'm using AI to handle my junior programming stuff. I just, write this function for me while I work on the the nested loop and things like that, make sure that's working exactly like I want, and that's where you accelerate your time there. I think both those worlds are going to exist in the same larger hemisphere. It's because you're going to be able to do it all now. It's like, as you said, you're going to be a part-time manager. I have a team.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
100%. We agree on that. Is that, you're going to need developers in this case, in other cases, managers
yep,
effectively of these systems that, like, they aren't just, task managers, but they're, hold the vision,
yep,
for the project and what needs to be accomplished, not only overall, but also on the individual tasks, right? What does done look like? um, why are we doing it? Incorporating the user feedback, all of that
yep,
stuff. I would kind of maybe say like a project manager that's also technical for the
yes,
developers. But
yep,
like, when you think about marketing, it's like, okay, a project manager that knows marketing. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yep,
When you think about content, a project manager that knows content,
yep,
so we're in agreement on that.
yeah.
But I'm trying to think through our mission of making it easy to own to build, control, and benefit from your own AI system. How much can we rely on these big tech tools before we sort of cross that threshold of, like, we no longer own our own AI system as BrainDrive, right? As because we're gonna have, you're gonna have the Dave Jones
Yep,
BrainDrive, I'm gonna have the Dave Waring
yep,
BrainDrive, and BrainDrive is gonna have a BrainDrive, right? That's
yep,
the businesses, right? And we want to own each of those things,
yep.
right? And I think, as we've discussed in previous conversations, if we think about this like a physical mind, that doesn't mean everything just runs in our head. Like, we're reaching out to people all the time for different expertise and that type of
Mhm.
stuff. So it doesn't all have to run locally, but like, where's that line where we start relying on a tool like this and we lose control of our own AI system?
See, and for me, I go back to what we talked about last time when we even took a step into this. These are weapons, not just tools. These are weapons. And we're free to use somebody else's weapon against them because that's it. We're not against them. We're trying to achieve a much different goal than they are. Um,
Oh no, it's
and
against them.
the key for me is, and this is where I was like, I think of now people learning to develop now software. That's going to be the first hit right there because people like me, I'm not going to stop coding. It's my golf. At the end of the day, it's like I love to get up. I told somebody once that I did a project for it. It's like, what would you do if you didn't do this tomorrow? I'd wake up and start coding again. I just pick a different project. It's
Right.
my golf. It's how I relax.
Yeah.
I have the skill and I'll keep my skill. It's the person who doesn't have the skill because you have to, as we said, you have to manage. You
Let
have
me
to.
ask you the question in another way.
Yep.
Okay, so we can both envision a world right now where this tool, along with you, is handling 90% of the development work on BrainDrive, right?
Not that high, but yes. Okay. Yes.
Not even in version 5?
Okay. Now version 5. Ooh, okay, I thought it was version 1.
No, no, no.
Okay.
I'm talking
Yep.
about over the next
Over
2
in this
years.
year. Yep. Yep.
Oh, yeah, you're even saying 1 year, right?
These guys aren't joking. This model is a beast.
Right. So you could definitely see a world, you could definitely envision a world, sometime in the future where you're the main, you are like, not only are you the main guy now, but even when this is a huge project, you're the main guy just
Yep.
working with a bunch of AIs,
Yep.
right? Um, so, this tool at that point would effectively be the Brain Drive development team with you
Yes. Yep.
leading it,
Which
right?
was our entire plan the whole time.
Yes, but yeah, okay. So then OpenAI cuts off access to this tool.
Yeah.
Then they've basically fired our whole team.
Yep.
And that's lock-in, right? So,
No,
you know,
hold on. It's only lock in if it was a locked in skill. In other words, like I say, if they shut that tool off, like, okay, I seen it, great, thank you, have a nice day, but the tool shuts down for whatever reason. It does it. I don't care. I still have an IDE. I can still code. The only difference right here is going to be time.
Well, I mean, but that's, what we're saying is what would have taken us hiring 100 or more
Yep.
developers, you can now do with this tool. And it's like, that's like saying in my mind, okay, well, if we fire our whole development team of 100 developers, you can still code. And it's like, well, yeah, but at that
Just
point,
not as fast.
we're fucked, you know?
That well, and our design almost future proofs us really as well, because once the core is solid, we're good. At the end of it, we are good
Yeah.
because I can take 3.7 right now, Claude. So it has nothing to do with this tool. I can sit with a bare prompt window, give it my directions, give it the document file that I have on. Here's an example of a plugin, and it can create me a plugin with near 80 to 90, and I've seen 100 on a few basic plugins, accuracy.
Right.
So once the core is done, OpenAI is the one who's the victim then, because I
Yeah, I
don't.
guess, when I'm thinking through, and I don't have like the answer to
Yep,
this, but when I'm thinking through, like we talk about, well, if the enemy wants to give us their tank, we'll take it. You know what I
yep.
mean? And I think that's true, but with a tank, like it's under our control at that point, they can't take it back. With this, it's like we're using their tank, but they can like flip a switch at any time to turn us off. You know what I
But
mean?
I'll take something from Kevin. Was it Kevin Leary, the
Yeah,
guy from Shark Tank?
yeah.
They have no proprietary information here at all.
Yeah, but what's going to happen is they're going to add memory and metadata around this, just like we would if we had a team, right?
Yep.
Like that team, let's say we fire 100, we have a team of 100 programmers. We have to get rid of those 100 programmers. We're not just going to be able to hire 100 more programmers immediately that know everything and have the culture and all of that. And that's going to start to be built into the memory of these tools,
But the
over
way this
time.
tool works, I don't see that as being. It's not. This is not a type of conversation in these tasks that take place where memory is the key factor. Because I would say there's nothing proprietary about this. It's okay. Can you access GitHub? I can create a batch file that can access GitHub right there.
Right.
We know that everybody and their mother can train a model now. Okay. They just showed people a different way to train it, because instead of using the data sets that are geared towards benchmarks, they took a data set and trained it as a human developer would think. So that's the
Yeah,
learn.
I got it.
Yep.
I'm
Because
just, the answer can't be right now we're
yeah.
using this, no
Oh
question.
yeah. Oh yeah. No. Oh no. I
uh,
wasn't. No. I'm
but
just not. I'm not as worried because if I'd be worried if, let's say, okay, good example, Google right now, they're actually using a diffusion text model right now. I don't know if you know the difference between.
I do, yeah.
Okay, they're the only ones doing this. What if this thing turns out to be the greatest thing through sliced bread? They would have a leap, and it's a little proprietary because nobody's even touching the tech. It would take everybody else time to catch up on how to do that effectively and correctly, where Google is kind of already leveraging a little farm over
Yeah,
there,
I
heading that
gotcha.
direction.
You're saying like there's this is going to be a commodity in a sense, right? Everyone's going to build this now that it's
Yep.
been out there, right? And so if OpenAI turns us off, we're going to be able to go over to Claude and do it there and blah blah blah, right? I got you.
ChatGPT is your perfect example of how this happened. They started it. Claude, all of a sudden, or Anthropic, all of a sudden said, "Hey, we can do this,"
Yeah,
and
I
they.
agree. Okay, so let's now take it to the next step though, right?
Yep.
Because let's say if coding is all this ever is,
Yep.
right? Okay, that's one thing. But we're agreeing that coding is just the first example of
Yep.
what all knowledge work is going to look like, right?
Yes.
So maybe it doesn't have any proprietary knowledge right now or lock in when it's just coding. But what about when I start using this for marketing and community management? What about when we start using it for finance? What about if we start using it for HR, legal, and like everything within BrainDrive? We're using OpenAI's what is this thing called again? Codex
Codex.
equivalent,
Yep. Yeah.
Codex equivalent for all these different roles. And there will be like how these things work together, all the different hookups to the MCP servers and blah, blah, blah. Like that's lock in.
That At this phase right now, it is lock-in. What it's going to take is, of course, local models stepping up, getting better.
Right.
And when that steps up and gets better, we already know that you can fine-tune a much smaller model to achieve frontier and state-of-the-art quality.
And what
It
I would say, so I agree with that. So what we're saying is just to restate
Yeah.
what you're saying is right now the open source models that you can own and control, they're not powerful enough to do this, right?
Yeah.
But they're improving rapidly, right? And
Yes.
our bet is they are going to be powerful enough to do this in the next year or so, right?
Yes.
And so that's agreed. So I just think here's what I would say is the difference with the coding part of this
Hmm.
is this is a tank that allows it. This isn't a tank. This is a factory that allows us to
That was my
build
word. I was
tanks.
jumping to
Yeah.
factory.
Yeah. So we just need to make sure that we're leveraging this tool
Hmm.
to build our weaponry,
Yep.
which is our equivalent use cases in the open source community. When we're leveraging this tool to build something like BrainDrive, which is an open source AI system, and the different components of that, we're using it as a factory to build our own equipment, right?
Yep.
Versus we're using their equipment that they can take away at any time, right?
And that's from. Oh, go ahead. You're still going.
No, that's it. That's
Okay.
what.
And for me, that's where this tool, I can see the shine. I'm not, because I'm not there yet. I'm not sure if it's there yet. The fact is that get out of the single line of traffic thinking mode that a normal developer's in. Now it is, I want to accomplish three things in one day, and they're separate. I want to get the initializer done. Um, I have two bugs in a plugin I want to get cleaned up and get them done, and I want to develop a new plugin as well. And I start my day with straight off with three tasks, each differently, so there's no overlap, and I don't have to worry about any files merging with other files right now, at the bare minimum. And so I can just go, and I can get done with all three in one day. Where normally I'd have been struggling probably to finish the first one.
No, I got it. I mean, there's no question.
Yeah.
And also this is, you know, strategically, we're betting that we can just go so far without having to raise a bunch of money and giving up control
Yep.
of the company that we're not going to have to sacrifice our open source philosophical values and freedom and ownership and everything because we've raised too much money, which is what always happens,
Yeah.
So this is a tool that's going to allow us to stick to our values because we're not going to have to put ourselves in a situation where we have to raise hundreds of millions of dollars to hire all these developers and everything and then are forced to earn crazy returns that
Yeah.
always end up extractive, right?
Yep.
To the community. So there's no question we need to use it. I'm putting a little bookmark here for us that we can't get too addicted. We need to be
No.
very careful about how we're using these tools and making sure that we're using them as a factory to at first build our own
Yep.
tools, right? So you mentioned BrainDrive plugins and even creating a copy of this, you know what I
Yep.
mean, eventually, and et cetera. And then secondly, we need to, create a copy of in other words, we need to use it to build our own factories too,
Yep.
So it's great. I'm excited.